International Airport last week, Friday, and by Sunday morning they were being interrogated by the police. The most we heard was that it was some investigation of immigration status. Now, this made no sense. How do you investigate the immigration status of tourists who have come to visit your island 2 days after they arrived? We're pleased to be talking with Brian Lloyd now. Brian is a longtime friend of Dominica. Dominica is not new to him. I remember talking with him after Hurricane Maria back in 2017. So, Brian, again, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm happy we could do this.
Yes, we're in St. Thomas. We departed from Dominica yesterday. We no longer felt safe being there. So I felt a responsibility for the people who are with me, and so we departed to come up here where we felt more comfortable.
Explain to the people of Dominica what really happened.
We arrived on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And when we arrived, the one unusual thing, I've been flying in since 2003 and flying into Canefield, so it is nothing new to me. The only thing that was unusual is that there was no immigration officer at the airport that day. And so we cleared customs and waited with customs, which had been contacted by immigration. I have a good friend there who helps me, Fiona and me. And she took our passports and fees down to the immigration office at Woodbridge, at the port of Woodbridge. And we were there for cleared in by immigration at that time. And we thought nothing of it. We spent the day, the rest of the day, we got our rental car and traveled around, had lunch. And then Saturday, we went up to the freshwater lake to do the hike up there and enjoyed ourselves. And then Sunday morning at 6:30 in the morning, there came a knock on our door. We were all awakened from a sound sleep, and it was the police. And they said that they had to take us down to the police station for discussion. We asked what the issue was, and we were told that we could not be told what the issue was, but we would be informed of the issue after we reached the police station.
So how many police officers are we talking about?
I didn't count, but there were probably seven or eight.
Okay.
Probably approximately one for each of us, I would say. But and one thing I will say is the police officers were professional. They were deferential, and they were respectful. So I have nothing against the police officers themselves. I got the feeling that they were not particularly happy with being there, but it was very clear that they were getting their instructions for this from someplace else. But we never did get any kind of clear indication as to what it was we were being held for. It was intimated that it was an immigration issue, and no, our passports were not stamped. However, flight crew often do not have their passports stamped because they travel to so many airports, and if you were to get a stamp at every airport, your passport would very quickly become unusable. So flight crew often does not get their passport stamped, and that was indicated to the police by the official from the immigration when he came down to the police station. Now, that is secondhand knowledge. I did not hear him actually say that, but that's what I was told.
Okay.
In spite of that, we continued to be held. We were held for 7 hours, and finally released and taken back to Exotica Cottages.
During that 7 hours, what questions were you asked? What were the police looking for?
Well, it wasn't. One of the reasons it took so long is unfortunately the officer who was taking recording the discussion did not write very quickly, and so we were limited to how fast she could write down the questions from the investigating officer and our responses. But the kinds of questions were very simple. There were a couple that seemed rather unusual. They asked questions about where we were staying and why we were staying. We were staying up at Exotica Cottages with my friend Athy Martin. And I've been staying with Athy since 2003, and Athy and Faye have become friends of mine. So I continue to stay there because I like it. And I've tried to stay apolitical. I know that there are issues between the sitting government and Athy, and he has been vocal. But I have done my level best to stay out of that. You know, that is for Dominica. I am a U.S. citizen, and it is not my place to insert myself into how you choose to run your country. However, I must say, this is turning me around. This kind of behavior, this kind of activity, it's unacceptable. And as a result, I have to decide what I'm going to do, and that may include not coming down anymore. For instance,
let me ask you this, Brian. You are familiar with Dominica because, as you said, you've been coming here since 2003. But you had six other persons on this trip. What sort of aviation tourism trip? You had Jeffrey Carpenter and Hugh Carpenter. Then you had Amber Bushnell, James and Jeremy Bushnell, and Faye McCullough was also with you. These are U.S. nationals who were coming to Dominica for the first time?
No, well, Faye has come with me before.
Oh, okay.
Faye is my life partner now.
Okay.
We are both older, and we spend most of our time together.
Okay.
And yes, she has been down to Dominica 3 times, including once immediately after Maria, and then again this last Christmas, and then, of course, this trip. However, the Bushnells and the Carpenters were part of my testing of how we would bring airplanes into Canefield. You know, pilots in the United States have great freedom to travel, but most of them are concerned about flying over water, doing international travel. So I offered to pilots in the United States to lead them down here, show them the process for navigating and going through customs and immigration. So I brought down the first 2 people. This was a kind of a test. They were going to give me feedback as to ways I could improve things, and they understood that this was not a tightly organized event. And this is really in preparation for another trip where I was going to bring down between 10 and 15 airplanes in May. And I can tell you right now, that trip is not going to happen.
Okay.
But when you think about it, think about an aircraft with 2 or 3 people on it. It lands in Canefield. These people, they rent a car. They deal with businesses that do hiking tours and scuba diving tours. And these are people who generally have more means than the average tourist. And they're going to bring $4,000 or $5,000 US dollars to your economy. And as far as I can tell right now, that's not going to happen. Okay. So that's a direct impact on your economy from this event.
Now, so you had the Carpenters and you had the Bushnells.
Yes.
All of them from both families from North Carolina?
No, the Carpenters are from North Carolina, where Jeffrey Carpenter is a sitting appellate judge. Mm-hmm. And the Bushnells operate an aviation activity business in Texas.
Oh, okay. Now, what was their reaction to what happened on Sunday?
Well, there was a good deal of quiet questioning. However, in the case of Mr. Carpenter, he was incensed that his 18-year-old son, they were there together on a father-son trip prior to his son going off to college. And he was absolutely incensed that his son had to be subjected to this. On our way, immediately after our detainment, he was able to contact his senator from the state of North Carolina, who notified the U.S. State Department and got the embassy involved. And this is an ongoing investigation within the United States as to how this could have happened. And I know that this is not over. The U.S. is taking a very pointed view of what happened, and I expect that there will be further events with regards to the U.S. government.
Now, with regard to the aviation tourism trip you planned in May with 15 planes or thereabout, you were discussing that here with whom? The Ministry of Tourism?
Well, actually, yes. Well, not with the Minister of Tourism. I was working mostly with Benoit Bardouille, who is the CEO of DASPA. Mr. Bardouille and I have engaged in discussions and in some business activity. For instance, after Hurricane Maria, I put together an emergency communications system. I'm an electrical engineer also. I put together an emergency communication system for DASPA that allows them to have communication after power and telephone and internet are lost. So I have a good working relationship with DASPA, and I find DASPA and its employees good to work with.
Now, you have indicated that the police officers seem to be not so much interested in this, but they were taking the instructions obviously from somewhere else. You are not a stranger to Dominica. You've been coming here since 2003. You've done a lot of work here. So you being here shouldn't raise any eyebrows.
I can't see why it would. The only things I have ever done on the island have been to the benefit of the island. I mean, immediately following Maria, I set up an airlift, and we moved medicine, we moved patients, we moved doctors, we moved food and supplies for a month following Maria, and I can't imagine that could be viewed by anyone as anything but positive for the country.
No, I don't think any right-thinking person in Dominica views it as anything but positive, which is why the developments of the weekend are so strange to the people of Dominica. And a lot of them are looking for answers. They want to make this make sense.
I can't see any way to make this make sense. I truly cannot. There is, I absolutely can state unequivocally that we were there as tourists and looking forward to a wonderful time on your island, as I have come to expect for 21 years.
Has anybody spoken to you since this? Anybody?
Well, I can tell you that my telephone gets many text messages from my friends on the island. And all of the comments I have gotten so far are, how could this be? How could this happen?
Has anybody from the government reached out to you?
I must, before we left, the Permanent Secretary for Tourism and the CEO of DASPA apologized to us profusely for the event. And they were clearly very sincere in their apology. And we certainly accept it on face value. But for anyone else in the government, no, we've heard nothing. We've heard nothing from the police. I know that the U.S. Embassy has inquired as to any of the paperwork or information about the event, and apparently there is none. So there's not like an arrest record or anything that one would ordinarily expect in the case of a case being prepared. So no, we've heard absolutely nothing from the government other than the assurances of both DASPA and the Permanent Secretary for Tourism that this is not Dominica, and we're really sorry it happened, and we would hope that you would come back to our country again. And I would hope that I could too. But again, until I have something from the government that makes it very clear that this was a mistake, that it has been dealt with, that someone operated outside of acceptable parameters, and that they have been dealt with, I can't come back to your country and feel safe.
Yeah, well, that's easy to understand. The point of the matter is that they have not indicated to you that you or any member of your team or any member of the group did anything in Dominica that merited what happened to them on Sunday. And they would have had no evidence of anything happening before you arrived in Dominica that would merit this sort of treatment. So that is why it is so weird and it doesn't make sense. But maybe
it makes no sense. But until the government actually says something about this, we can't know anything, because it's just been a lid of secrecy once they've released us. One other point, I think I mentioned Fiona Eileen, and she, even after they released us and said, yes, there is nothing more, they still picked her up and interrogated her. So
they still picked up who?
Fiona.
Oh, okay.
She's a lovely lady. Has a son. She lives up in Stock Farm. I met her when I was here in 2010. My late wife and I came and did a summer school program and helped Gloria Walsh with her summer program for disadvantaged children. And then we ran a summer school program in Soufriere.
14 years ago.
That was, 14
Wow.
years ago, 2010.
Wow.
And at that time, Fiona was working for Child Fund, and we made friends with her. And we have remained friends with her and helped her when we could. And whenever we're on the island, she helps us. So, we're just friends. But they picked her up after releasing us and after we thought it was done. So clearly, the government is somehow continuing with this, and we know not why.
All right. So yesterday morning at about 10 o'clock when you left, there was this, huge sigh of relief from the team? Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's no question that we were, even our attorney, Wayne Nordy, came down to make sure that we were able to leave and nothing further happened. And that's another issue. We have a substantial legal deal with Mr. Nordy, and he absolutely deserves to be paid, and he will be paid. So why do we have that bill? Why did we need to hire an attorney to protect our interests and to make sure that everything was done in accordance to law for something like this?
Well,
that was a direct cost to us.
It was a direct cost to you. So is there going to be action going forward that will allow those who are really responsible for your legal bill to pay the legal bill?
I don't know. It's certainly something that we intend to pursue, because, there are 7 of us, and Mr. Nordy is a well-respected and well-known attorney, and he deserves to be paid his fee. But it's not an inconsequential fee. And so, yes, I think, frankly, the government should pay that fee for us.
Right.
But I do not expect to hear anything from the government. I really do not.
Brian, I really, really empathize with you and your friends from the group that arrived here, hoping to have a wonderful time, and it turned out like that. I just hope for the benefit of all your friends in Dominica and the people who've come to respect what you have done for the country and the work that you've been able to do with them over the years, that one day they will have the opportunities, not too long from now, to welcome you back to our shores. Thank you, Brian.
I hope so. I hope so too.
Yeah.
I want you to know, I truly have considered Dominica to be my second home. Yes, I live in the United States, but I truly love coming down to your country and being part of your community. And that was one thing that my late wife and I found when we came down in 2010 and ran that program, is we were truly accepted into your community, and we felt like we could be a part.
Yeah.
That has been that has been destroyed. And that is what is so sad.
Yeah. Brian, thank you very much for joining us. And,
well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and good luck. And I
best.
sincerely hope that things get better.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. Brian Lloyd joining us from St. Thomas this morning. He left the island with 6 other persons who visited Dominica in small planes, 3 of them on Friday last week, and then ended up on the police interrogation 2 days later on Sunday morning for what up till now they do not know. So this looks like a huge blunder, huge miscalculation by somebody in the political directorate, God knows who. But this is not the end of this, as we heard from Brian there. And this plan that he had to bring in 15 airplanes to Dominica in the month of May, that's off. He needs some assurances that what happened to himself and the group this weekend, just gone, will not ever happen again. We'll take a few phone calls before we close it up.
Lennox Clinton.
Wayne James, how are you doing, sir?
I think I just want to say a few things here on what we have just heard from Brian. And for me personally, knowing how the U.S. operates and understanding some of the high-profile individuals, including an appeal judge, who was subject to this form of humiliation, I knew that we were not going to hear the end of this at this point in time. As I listened to Brian, he indicated that the police officers who came to the cottages at Exotica, they were uneasy. They wished that they were not involved in what was going on. But as he indicated, it seems that they were getting directed from somewhere else. I want to say to the people of Dominica this morning that this is going to have serious implications for the country of Dominica. The U.S. is not going to sit back and allow this to get away. You understand? You heard the gentleman said that he had to get a lawyer, Mr. Wayne Nordis, to represent them. This morning, I want the people of Dominica to help me to call on the President of Dominica, Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton, to launch an immediate investigation into this major scandal and embarrassment for the country of Dominica. She's the head of state. The Commissioner of Police, Acting Commissioner of Police, Davidson Valerie, must answer to the people of Dominica. Where did he get his instructions from in order for him to hand down these instructions to the people? I was a police officer for 24 years and plus. And for us to go on an operation like that, we would have to be getting instruction from superior officers. We could not decide to do such a thing on our own. So I'm fully aware that the police officers who were part of that exercise, they were not doing it on their own accord. So we have to get down to the bottom of this. And Davidson Valerie has to answer to the people of Dominica. He's being paid by the people of Dominica. And as such, we cannot tolerate in this day and age. Is that what the gentleman just said? 15 aircraft, all of them with individuals, was planning to be here in May. In the month of May, I would have hoped that they would have come maybe in the early week of May, because we have in jazz and so on. And could you imagine all of those persons wanted to attend the jazz festival down in Portsmouth, the kind of revenue and the exposure that this country would have gotten? And we have a man sitting in the seat of Commissioner of Police, not doing the work on behalf of the people of Dominica as a Commissioner of Police, but working on behalf of politicians and bringing the country of Dominica to this shame. Davidson Valerie, I want you to search your conscience again this morning, brother, and do what is right.